Hey everyone, this is Jason Jeffries from the Alliance Project here today. I promised you guys I would do a review of my previous work and research and show you kind of a walkthrough of the dots I'm connecting. And about 2 years ago on YouTube, there was a real big push for September 23rd. September 23rd, the world will end September 23rd. And I started researching and I realized that CERN ramps up to 6.5 tera-electron volts that day. It's the highest that they let us know of. And we actually had some more weird things happen around that date, and it was ramped up. You see a lot in the movies and in the media, they push 9/23, September 23rd, September 23rd. Okay? And we all had this interest in trying to decipher revelations and Bible code ever since I was a young child. I remember somebody introducing it to me, and I just thought this was a wild story because it was into the future, and I couldn't understand it. But as you read it, it tells you that you wouldn't understand it, hence the seals, until the time. And when you were in the time, you would understand the seals as they passed because they were parables for what was going on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. A great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. There was another sign in heaven. An enormous red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that night it might devour her child the moment he was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she may be taken care of for 1,260 days. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but he was not strong enough. They lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Then a loud voice in heaven said, "Now have come the salvation and power in the kingdom of God." All right, we're just going to stop right there. All right. So this was 2 years ago, right? You're going through the timelines, and you're like, well, you're trying to see signs, right? Biblical signs. We were looking for those four blood moons. We have 4 consecutive blood moons, and then we have the year 2017, okay? The Hebrew year 5776 kept popping all up through Bible prophecy on every way, and I mean the Torah code as well. When you decipher it, that is actually the year 2016, the current year we're in. Now, if that was giving us a sign, like a marker, like after this year, this is the final approach, whatever it meant, that's what they were talking about, okay? So what we can do is we'll go to September 23rd, okay? And then we'll take a look at what the earth would be seeing that day. I know I've showed you guys this a few times. Going back over it. Okay. So, a woman clothed with the sun. That's the first clue, right? Okay, Virgo, the virgin. She becomes clothed with the sun. And I'm going to show you this in another program, maybe 2 or 3. This day, as sun comes up, that's night sky. Well, that's perfect, I guess. We'll leave it right there. As the sun comes up, it would clothe that constellation. Okay, so that's just the same as astrology. The sun would be in the sign of Virgo. So there's our first sun. Okay, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. And I'm like, okay. So we look and we realize that Leo has 9 major stars, and then you add Mercury, Mars, and Venus. There's her 12 stars as a crown on top of her head. Okay, the moon at her feet. Okay, so that fits the bill right there. She was pregnant and cried out in pain. She was about to give birth. Now, September 23rd is the 266 days. That is the same amount of human gestation period as a male, as an adult, or from, you know, a cell to a baby. So that's the gestation period. Not only that, Jupiter is actually inside the constellation right here, and to the point where it literally is pushing out her belly, if you will. These were her knees. And if you see the painting, the artist's rendition of it, which I'll show you in a little bit, it's really magnificent. But what else really sets this in? They give birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all nations with an iron scepter. All right. Jupiter was known as the kingmaker, and he ruled all the nations with an iron scepter. Okay. His symbol is literally the dominant. That's the symbol of a male. You know, it's the idea. They're giving you this, the idea. It was called the kingmaker. It was literally, he ruled over the nations with an iron scepter. So that's why they did that. It was a sign. Okay. When they're talking about this, the only thing we're missing here, right, is an enormous red dragon that popped up into the sky. Okay. So if we go here, just take comets off. We don't see anything. Okay. You put the comets on, blam, there's 67P, just as I told you, that comet that is the crazy orbit that it comes out of Sagittarius, just as the ancient ones told us. And it's basically the center of the Rosetta missions. So we know that they're covering something, they're telling the public something, they're spending money and getting the funding, but what they're really looking at is totally different. We've known this for a long time with any space mission. I've proved it time and again with the Pioneer 10, 11, and the Voyager missions, okay? I've showed you the paperwork. I've had others show you the paperwork with multiple references. So, yeah, there you go. We look for, how do we know that this is it? Well, I've personally looked 4,000 years ahead, 4,000 years behind. This does not happen again, will not happen again, okay? This is the only time this alignment has ever happened, including in biblical times till 4,000 years in the future from now. If we want to look even just further, now how I've correlated my October 5th dates between September 23rd and October 5th being the day that they speak of the sign appearing in heaven in biblical prophecy, and how I can assure you that it is next year that they're talking about, is I can go just a little bit further. War broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, okay? And the dragon and his angels fought back. We'll just leave that in there. So what we'll do here is, let's see if I can maybe progress by it. See, watch what Michael's trail does here. Mercury, Michael, right? And you see how when it goes in retrograde, because of our orbit, when we go around the sun, we'll start curving back another way and we'll go back around the sun. So our perceptions change just as this thing does as it's going around the sun. But as say if we get to the fall equinox or the winter equinox, something like that, and we start going back the other way towards spring and summer, that's the idea of why it does this from our perception. So Michael goes through where the dragon is, right? Starts chasing the dragon. Gets past him here, okay? Oops, sorry. Gets to Saturn. We know There's a lot of Satan, Saturn, black sun, dark sun worship. It's one of the most occult symbols out there, Saturn. And look what Mercury does when it reaches Saturn. Like I said, in December when the equinox comes, things like that, loops around. But this is what really brings it to my attention. As you just keep going on to the year, as we go into December, just you see that in January, Michael not only does a loop around Saturn, Satan, you know, that it does too. It goes back and dances around this thing. And I just showed you the trail, like I said. Okay. So what we're going to do is go back to 2017, October, with the 5th. We'll go to the solar system view. Okay. So, trying to get you to realize how this correlates. So let me show you a nice glimpse here. From Earth's perspective, the moon. All right, we know that the sun would be blocked out, right? This would be an ideal. That's why I said the 15th at the latest, I'm thinking. But this would be a possibility for the moon being turned black, or blood red, like it was saying, and the sun being turned sackcloth. You can't have the sun or the moon block out the sun unless it's in front of us, okay? Which the moon would not turn blood red. It would be black and non-visible. New moon, okay? This is the same as Jesus' birth. It's celebrated on, you know, Passover, this and that, and they did it. The idea was when they did it, they're celebrating with the new moon, so it was the night before. And with the new moon, that means it's, or full moon, they celebrate it, you know, a full moon. It's the earth is in between the sun and the moon, and that's how the moon becomes full. It's lit up. There's no way for a full moon to cause an eclipse like it did in the Bible for 3.5 hours, okay, on the night before a full moon. And I've made diagrams of this, and I could show you that as well. But when you're looking at Virgo, that's why the constellation Virgo is, it makes sense here. Because if there was an object coming through, as we were discussing, and there's comet 67P. If this comet was coming through, and we see where it comes to, like I said, it has an oblate orbit. I believe this orbit, they're only giving us the half, the entry and the exit, like their crossover point. I believe Enki and something else, they're definitely hinting and explaining these things away with certain comet placements because of where the Earth and Sun and our perspective will be at different times in the year. So if they put an object here and one here, when we come around this side, we could question like, oh, if the thing's all the way out here, why are we seeing it over here? Because it's not, it's closer. That's the idea. Basically false flags. And I believe these 3 comets coming together around that time, 4 or 5 comets coming around that time has a lot to do with it. As we look towards Sagittarius, we can see the tilt of the ecliptic. Here's about flat for the ecliptic. All these secondary planes like Ceres, which the ancient ones told us in the Enuma Elish that was created from the destruction of Tiamat and this thing hitting it, creating the Earth and the plate tectonics and so on, and this mini planet right here, which makes up 1/3 of the material in the asteroid belt. And basically, no planet like it. And then the other remnants of the asteroid belt are basically just, you know, the the entrails, the guts of the planet, if you will. So if we're looking at that and we look to cite it back to where it could have came from, it goes back to Sagittarius, as I was telling you. So this object could have came out of Sagittarius, came this way, right? Came around and go back. Or it could come this way, rise up above the ecliptic and go back that way. More along my favor, I'd say, would be that. I would say that this object would be coming this way, coming up under, and then finally passing out that way as we enter the debris trail and the tail that it's pulling behind it, talking about the stars raining down from the sky. But this, like I said, Sitchin, all these people said it came out of Sagittarius. Ophiuchus. And now I wanted to go to another program. Let me pull it up here. Okay, so when I showed you the most recent WISE scan, the infrared scan, showed you this object in Pisces. Now, if you were to go and correlate this thing coming out of Sagittarius on a highly elliptical inclined orbit, put Virgo on the path, like I said, from our perception from that date, then Pisces at this date, when it was taken, totally makes sense, all right? Now, I am a firm believer that when we caught this was definitely an infrared scan of it. Now, when we go to the IRS scan, I showed you these before. That might be the improved IRS. We'll look through a couple of them real quick, see if I have the right one. We want to go to baby. Right. Now I'm trying to see if I can give you a good scan here. Definitely have some wild UV anomaly popping up there. But what I was trying to get at, I might not be able to show you in this program, might have to close down and show you another. But I want to correlate one more thing with it. So let me go to that for 1 moment. So you can go to Google Sky, and we were looking at Virgo. And when you go to the infrared scan, you realize that there's one piece of blacked out information. And if we know it was hard to see, if it had hard reflect material or a Dyson sphere or something like that, we couldn't see it with the wavelength of visible light that me and you view out of. With the infrared spectrum, it would appear very bright. So we see that that's blocked out there, right? So that's odd. And if we take that off and just look at where it was, well, that's just in the belly of Virgo. That's pretty odd that how all these things are tying together. Okay. You can actually turn them down just enough so they blend. Yeah, pretty amazing. Wanted to give you just a quick rundown of that and show you some different programs. I can pull it up in one more, so give me 1 second. Okay, so there it is in one more program. There's the moon at her feet, there's the constellation, there's the baby she's birthing, the sun clothing her, and the 12 crowns at her head. We don't have the comet here. I'm going to go ahead and progress it a couple hours into the 23rd, and you see what they mean by the sun clothing. This is in Israel, by the way. I put it there for Bible's sake. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that little breakdown, and just hope you see how it all makes sense, you know. And the 13th sign of the zodiac with the serpent wrestling the man, and Sagittarius pointing to Virgo and all this, it kind of seems like the ancients were definitely trying to tell us something. I mean, Hercules, Draco, they're all right there in that one little patch of sky. Something to think about, and hope you enjoyed. Thanks.